Can you guys hear me? Salãmun Alaykum, everyone.
No, all this time we're hearing this knock, 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 knock
Really?
sound. Yeah, like you're you're you know not a single word.
Oh,
N-
but you can hear now?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh, strange.
are you saying anything, Solomon? We can't hear you.
Yeah, we cannot
You
hear
can
you.
start now. Yes. Yes. Okay. So, Salãmun Alaykum, everyone. Sorry for the delay. Um, okay. So, today we're going to read from Surah 6, verse 74, and we're going to read up until verse 101. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Abraham debates with idol worshippers. Recall that Abraham said to his father Azar, "How could you worship statues as gods? I see that you and your people have gone far astray." We showed Abraham the marvels of the heavens and the earth, and blessed him with certainty. When the night fell, he saw a shining planet. "Maybe this is my Lord," he said. When it disappeared, he said, "I do not like gods that disappear." When he saw the moon shining, he said, "Maybe this is my Lord." When it disappeared, he said, "Unless my Lord guides me, I will be with the strayers." When he saw the sun rising, he said, "This must be my Lord. This is the biggest." But when it set, he said, "O my people, I denounce your idolatry. I have devoted myself absolutely to the one who initiated the heavens and the earth. I will never be an idol worshiper." His people argued with him. He said, "Do you argue with me about God after he has guided me? I have no fear of the idols you set up. Nothing can happen to me unless my Lord wills it. My Lord's knowledge encompasses all things. Would you not take heed? Why should I fear your idols? It is you who should be afraid, since you worship instead of God idols that are utterly powerless to help you. Which side is more deserving of security, if you know? Perfect security for believers. Those who believe and do not pollute their belief with idol worship have deserved the perfect security, and they are truly guided. Such was our argument with which we supported Abraham against people. We exalt whomever we will to higher ranks. Your Lord is most wise, omniscient. And we granted him Isaac and Jacob, and we guided both of them. Similarly, we guided Noah before that, and from his descendants we guided David, Solomon, Job, Joseph, Moses, and Aaron. We thus reward the righteous. Also Zechariah, John, Jesus, and Elias, all were righteous. And Ishmael, Elisha, Jonah, and Lot, each of these we distinguished among all the people. From their ancestors, their descendants, and their siblings, we chose many and we guided them in a straight path. Such is God's guidance, with which he guides whomever he chooses from among his servants. Had any of them fallen into idolatry, their works would have been nullified. Those were the ones to whom we have given the scripture, wisdom and prophethood. If these people disbelieve, we will substitute others in their place, and the new people will not be disbelievers. These are the ones guided by God. You shall be guided in their footsteps. Say, I do not ask you for any wage. This is but a message for all the people. Okay, so very interesting verses for today, alhamdulillah, and very timely as well. Mashallah, God is explaining to us, Abraham's example, everything that Abraham did, even in his entire thought process and the way he debated with the people, his actual dialogues. And so God makes sure that no detail that is relevant to us, for our salvation is left out of the Quran. And, he gives us the example of how Abraham debated with the idol worshippers. Now, there's a lot of wisdom behind the way he debated with his people. And, we've heard a lot of criticism on how we debate and what we say and all that, which is all good. But Abraham's example here is, Abraham said that, his example, he prayed to God that he sets good example for the future generations. And obviously God answered his prayer, and we see that in his examples here. And, we see the example where he saw a shining planet, then he saw the shining moon rising, then he saw the sun rising. And, first said, maybe this is my God. When he saw the shining planet, then he thought maybe it's the moon, then maybe it's the sun. But we know that he wasn't genuinely, like, at that time, he wasn't genuinely like thinking that this could be his God, because he was never an idol worshiper. And also the Messenger of the Covenant explained that he was basically mocking them by saying, okay, maybe I'll worship this guy. Oh, he's no more. Okay, maybe I'll worship that. So, like, he was saying, oh, who are we supposed to worship? And so that was, in a way, mocking them, but at the same time, it was making a very strong point, that sending a very strong message that there's no other God beside God, like, all these things are temporary, they come and they go, but God is the one who is eternal, and he is the creator of everything. But he demonstrates and illustrates that with this elaborate strategy of this thing that kind of sounds like it's just pure mocking, but really there's a purpose behind it. And then we see that every time you advocate the worship of God alone, and there are certain idols that people may have, obviously, there comes part of Satan's system. He tries to instill fear, and through all of his constituents that are idol worshippers, they try to instill fear into him by saying that, like, typically, as you can see, like, they'll say, like, God's wrath will come upon you, or whatever. And we understand from the Quran that if you believe in God alone, and God alone is your only Lord and Master, I mean, that no one can harm you against God's will, and nothing happens to you unless God wills it. So there's no point in fearing anyone or anything besides God. It could be anyone, anything, but we have to remember always that submitters, the believers, they're fearless because they worship God alone, and they know that no one can harm you against God's will. So if you're afraid of someone or something, then you're giving that thing or that person power, when God is the one that you should completely trust, and he's the one you should be afraid of, in the sense that you don't do anything that incurs God's wrath upon you for based on your own actions. We know nothing bad comes from God, but if somebody intends something bad on you, I mean, if you're doing everything correctly and you're worshiping God alone, you're going to be protected. So that's God's guarantee, And so the believers who worship God alone, obviously they've deserved the perfect security. God says, I mean, this verse is very, very, I mean, very um, satisfying to read for me personally, anyways. When God talks about the perfect security, because you could have so many worries on your mind, and you can have so many different fears coming from all sides. But when God says, those who do not pollute their belief with idol worship have deserved the perfect security, it should really ease our minds and our hearts when we hear that, if we truly believe in God alone. And we know now for a fact that, if you believe in God alone, after you pass all your tests, you're tested by fear of loss of, money and all of that. But once you pass, you enter God's kingdom where everything is perfect for you. You have perfect happiness now and forever. So this was the argument that with which God supported Abraham against his people. Now that we can see here, that was a perfect argument, because he's saying, you're trying to scare me. You should be the one who's scared, because you're out of God's protection. You have all these idols. All your works are going to be nullified if if you worship any idols, and you're not going to be under God's protection. No angel is going to protect you from anything. You're just out there for Satan to come in and afflict you whenever he wants, based on his incompetence. And then God tells us about all of the prophets and messengers that came from the progeny of Abraham, and Noah, and all of these prophets that that are mentioned in the Quran. And God says, it says, from among their descendants, from their ancestors, their descendants, and their siblings, we chose many and we guided them in the straight path. So definitely, it doesn't say all of the descendants were guided, right? So when people talk about lineage and all of that, it's all just kind of meaningless for them, to say, well, this so and so came from the lineage of this prophet. Like, I mean, talking about us people, that I'm from this person, and this other person's so pious because he's a descendant of this prophet or something. We know that not all of the descendants of any prophet were guided. Certain people were chosen from their descendants and they were guided. And God said even these people, like, they were the most righteous people among God's servants, and they were chosen by God. But had any of them fallen into idolatry, their works would have been nullified. So I mean, that's a very that's something that should keep us all on our toes during our daily lives, because we could be doing so many righteous things, but if we ever fall into idol worship in any shape or form, we could lose everything um, that we have stored for our hereafter. you know and I mean, that should really be something to be that is really something to be worried about. Like, if you really want to worry about something, you should worry about not committing idol worship, um, uh, because that will nullify everything. All your charities, you could be praying 5 times a day, you could be the most righteous person, you'd be giving charity all the time, but if you commit idol worship and you maintain it until death, you can be certain that all of your works will be nullified. And this is God's system. Um, and God says that these were guided by God, and we should be guided in their footsteps. So really, when we look for role models in our lives and we look for examples, our role models and our examples should not come from each other, and they should not come from people, definitely not from people that we see in the world outside. Um, our role models, our examples, are mentioned in the Quran. All these prophets and messengers, God put them as role models, and role models in terms of their belief and their actions, in terms of pleasing God, not in terms of how they dressed or any of that stuff, obviously. so so yeah, I mean, these were people that were chosen by God, and they showed through their lives, how they worship God under all circumstances. And we're commanded in verse 90 here to follow in their footsteps. So, God willing, I'm going to continue reading verse 91. God's messages to the world. They never valued God as he should be valued. Thus they said, God does not reveal anything to any human being. Say, who then revealed the scripture that Moses brought with light and guidance for the people? You put it down on paper to proclaim it while concealing a lot of it. You were taught what you never knew, you and your parents. Say, God is the one who revealed it. Then leave them in their heedlessness playing. This too is a blessed scripture that we have revealed, confirming the previous scriptures, that you may warn the most important community and all those around it. Those who believe in the hereafter will believe in this scripture and will observe the contact prayer salat. And a footnote for 692 says, today's most important, quote unquote, most important community is America, where God's message is being restored. When the Quran was revealed, Mecca was the most important community. Okay, so these two verses basically talk about, God's messages to us and the scriptures, and for people who don't believe in the Quran, God is saying here that, okay, so if you don't believe, they say that God did not reveal anything to any human being. Apparently they believe in the Bible, the Old Testament, at least, because it says, who then revealed the scripture that Moses brought with light and guidance for the people? And then he says, you put it down on paper to proclaim it while concealing a lot of it. So this shows that they put a lot of it down on paper to proclaim it, but they concealed a lot of it. And that explains why we don't really find, if you look at, Abraham's history in the Bible, you don't really see any information about any of the practices that were given to him, like we do in the Quran. We know God gave him all the practices. Apparently, the only thing you can really find is circumcision, which is quite ironic. And that's the only thing you don't find in the Quran. And then it says, leave them in their heedlessness playing, because they're probably not going to believe. And God says, this is the most important, this is a blessed scripture that we have revealed, confirming the previous scriptures. So this book confirms the previous scriptures, and things it confirms are the things that you're supposed to follow. Things that it's not confirming to you, you're not supposed to follow, because they're unconfirmed. We have physical, tangible, mathematical proof that this scripture is from God, and everything is in this book, unlike any of the other previous scriptures, has been left intact, to the T. So we can truly just follow it with our eyes closed. And if you see any other messages out there, confirm them from the Quran. If they're confirmed, if the Quran confirms them, only then you're supposed to follow it. If they're not in the Quran, you do not follow them. And God talks about the most important community, and at the time of the revelation of the Quran, Mecca, it says, was the most important community, and it was a center of trade, and people would come from all corners of the world that they could possibly, and then they would go back to their own countries or whatnot, and this is how the message was being spread around the world, and people were coming to observe Hajj. There were people following Abraham, and there were people following Abraham during the time of Muhammad. So they were all coming to observe Hajj. There was the center of the world in a way, and so it was the most important community, because that's how the message was being spread all over the world. However, now things are different, and the Saudis obviously have fallen from God's grace because they have insisted on committing idol worship, and God said that He would substitute other people in their place. It was a warning God issued to the Arabs that He would substitute other people in their place if they don't uphold the message, which He did. And now the United States of America is the most important community, and we see that it's economically and strategically, I think, one of the most powerful countries in the world culturally, and so all of these things make the United States the most important community. You see, it's the melting point for people of all cultures, and people come from all over the world for various reasons, and can get exposed to the message because we have complete freedom of expression and freedom of religion in this country. We can practice our religion freely without being imprisoned or going to or facing the death penalty or anything like that you see in all these Arab countries, right? Or so-called Muslim countries. So God has made this now the most important community, and praise be to God. Okay, I now reading verse number 33. We'll continue. False messengers condemned. Who's more evil than one who fabricates lies and attributes them to God, or says, I have received divine inspiration, when no such inspiration was given to him, or says, I can write the same as God's revelations? If only you could see the transgressors at the time of death. The angels extend their hands to them, saying, let go of your souls. Today you have incurred a shameful retribution for saying about God other than the truth, and for being too arrogant to accept his revelations. You have come back to us as individuals, just as we created you the first time, and you have left behind what we provided for you. We do not see with you the intercessors that you idolized and claimed they will help you. All ties among you have been severed. The idols you set up have abandoned you. Okay, so this really is a serious warning for us that if you ever feel like you want to claim to be a messenger, that it is a very, very dangerous thing to do. You really just it's like committing suicide for your soul, basically. you know um God says that they're the most evil people on earth, actually. I mean, you may sympathize with them sometimes, because you might think they're mentally deranged or something, but actually Quran says that they're the most evil people on earth. And this is mentioned in the Quran. It's a very common occurrence. I mean, I wasn't really planning on talking about it, but we just have a recent example of this one person who is going all over Facebook and telling people that he's a messenger now, and he's Edward would love this, but he's a messenger of unity. He's here to supposedly unite people, which is amazing because that would be the first messenger that is sent to be just as an arbitrator, and as his duty. And God says that the messengers come with proofs, and people who fail to provide evidence, of course, are not messengers. And obviously, one of the things that this guy has been preaching is that the counts that the messenger of the covenant promoted were not. There's something there to investigate, actually, because he was actually supporting Rashad's brother, who came up with the wrong counts and saying he's in heaven and all that. Anyways, God says that these people will have a horrible ending, and angels will extend their souls. I mean, they're going to have a bad ending, and in the hereafter as well. So this is a serious warning to everyone. Um, Moving on to 95, greatness of God. God is the one who causes the grains and the seeds to crack and germinate. He produces the living from the dead, and the dead from the living. Such is God. How could you deviate? At the crack of dawn, he causes the morning to emerge. He made the night still, and he rendered the sun and the moon to serve as calculation devices. Such is the design of the Almighty, the Omniscient. And he is the one who made the stars to guide you during the darkness, on land and on sea. We thus clarify the revelations for people who know. He initiated you from one person and decided your path as well as your final destiny. We thus clarify the revelations for people who understand. He's the one who sends down from the sky water, whereby we produce all kinds of plants. We produce from the green material multitudes of complex grains, palm trees with hanging clusters, and gardens of grapes, olives, and pomegranate, fruits that are similar yet dissimilar. Note their fruits as they grow and ripen. These are signs for people who believe. Yet they set up beside God idols from among the jinns, though he is the one who created them. They even attribute to him sons and daughters without any knowledge. Be he glorified. He is the Most High, far above their claims. The initiator of the heavens and the earth, how can he have a son when he never had a mate? He created all things, and he's fully aware of all things. Okay. So, Masha Allah, very beautiful verses. I think, really sheds light on God's greatness and how you and I can witness, God's omnipotence and his power in place if we really reflect on these verses. Really, I mean, they're beautiful and powerful because you can truly appreciate God's omnipotence. It shows you a glimpse of, you know, his awesomeness and um, you know, really, I mean, his omniscience. I'd say It says he causes the grains and the seeds to crack and germinate. He produces the living from the dead and the dead from the living, and we see that every day. He produces the living from the dead. I mean, you have a seed, you can carry it around for hundreds of years and save them. They won't do anything if you preserve them. I mean, they'll be fine, and you can freeze them for, I don't know, as long as you want, and then you could plant them, and they'll grow into a giant tree even. um, and obviously in these plants are living creatures. They have souls, and they talk to each other. They, I mean, communicate with other plants, and they give their fruit, they reproduce. um, and we have examples of, for example, birds that lay eggs. I mean, they're live birds, and they give birth to eggs, and they're still. And then, so you have the example of the dead from the living, and then from the egg germinates, emerges, this beautiful, cute creature with wings. And that's the example of the dead from the living. I mean, living from the dead. um and so this is God. I mean, none of us can, I mean, imagine you have an egg with just a bunch of liquid inside of it, right? And then it starts to grow a heart, and it has a heartbeat, and all these nerves start to form, and all these beautiful textures and shapes, identical to the parents, start to come about. The whole genetic map that's stored inside that egg, starts to, form itself and programs it. I mean, it's like a tiny program that's in that egg, and it starts to do its magic, sort of. But God is the one who has designed this elaborate system, and we see that every day. I mean, you anywhere you look in nature, and you really start to ponder on how God has designed these systems. I mean, it will blow your mind away, literally, not literally, not literally, but it really blows your mind, because this is God's awesome power, and we can never fathom God's greatness. Really, that's why God says in the Quran that we can never fathom God's greatness, and He's the Almighty, Omniscient. And then it talks about how God, causes the morning to emerge at the crack of dawn, and how He made the night still and rendered the sun and the moon as calculation devices. I mean, imagine, like, it's amazing. Like, if you had to spin something in space, and you spin it in a way that it makes these countless rotations around each other, multiple objects, and then they're so precise that you can use them as calculators. You know, I mean, this is God's design, right? I mean, for millions of years, these things keep going around and around, and they're not even still; they're moving in their own orbits. But we can still use them as calculation devices. This is God's perfect balance that He talks about in the Quran. And it says, such is the design of the Almighty, the Omniscient. So He is the best designer. So He can precisely, like, everything, every calculation, physical calculation, he's a precise designer. He knows where anything needs to be. And talks about how we use the stars for navigation during darkness, on land and on sea. And even now, people who travel by sea will still use the stars for navigation because their instruments can fail, and so you still use the stars for navigation. And on land too, I mean, I guess if you were in a desert or something like that, you could still use the stars for navigation. And God initiated you from one person who decided your path as well as your final destiny. So God already knows, what our final destiny is going to be based on what we have done. So whether we're a believer or a disbeliever, or whether we're destined for heaven or hell, it's already, almost like stamped on our foreheads, but we are just experiencing through it. God willing, we all can save ourselves and be among those that are redeemed by God. And then verse 99, God talks about how He sends from the sky water and uses it to produce all kinds of plants. When it says all kinds of plants, really, I mean, you can think of different kinds, and then there'll be other kinds of plants, because there's so many different ones. There's plants going in the sea, there's plants in the desert, there's plants in all different environments that are doing so many different things. You have the spices, you have the fruits that grow underground, you have fruits that grow on trees, you have vegetables that grow underground, you have the vegetables that are somewhere borderline between vegetables and fruits. I mean, you have like plants that are flowers, you have herbs, you have all these plants that people use for drugs and people use them for alcohol and all that. And you have plants that are being used for medications, and there's so many different species of plants being discovered every day, and there's still more that people are coming across. And God creates all of these and they all serve a specific purpose in our ecosystem. And that's why it says we produce from the green material multitudes of complex grains, and there's so many different types of grains, like especially you can appreciate, fruits that it talks about here, palm trees and hanging clusters and grapes, olives, and pomegranates. I mean, while you're fasting, like, Masha Allah, we are, most of us, well, I think, yeah, most of us, some people, are in other time zones. They probably fasted, hopefully. So we truly appreciate, all these different fruits that God has created. I mean, these are all very complex structures that God has put together precisely, and they all come from the same earth. They all feed this. We feed them all the same water, but they all have different flavors. They have different beautiful colors, beautiful designs, and we enjoy the different tastes. I mean, subhanallah. It talks about grapes and olives. I mean, they're both like identical shapes in a way, but they're so different. I mean, an olive, the structure of an olive, and how you can get oil out of it. You cannot get oil from grapes, for example. Or and pomegranates. I mean, pomegranates are one of the most beautiful fruits that you can find on earth, I think. I mean, there's so many others, but truly, I mean, God has created all these beautiful things for us to commemorate him and to appreciate his greatness, so we can reverence him. But it says, yet people idolize idols from among the jinns, though he's the one who created them, and they attribute sons and daughters to God without knowledge. And how can God have a son, especially when he didn't have a mate? Obviously, God didn't have a mate, right? So why would God have a son? I mean, that's a logical question to these people. I mean, all these people that say God had a son, I mean, what are you trying to say? And God says he created all things and he's fully aware of all things. So, I mean, when it says he's fully aware of all things, I mean, he is fully aware of everything that we have done from the back in the heavenly society to what we're doing when we were 2 or 3, all the way till we die, and our consequences for eternity that will continue for every single one of us. All the, not only just humans, all the creatures, ants, everything. So God is like, almost, he has the master database of everything in the universes from now till eternity. And that's just truly mind-boggling to think about. But God is fully aware of everything. Okay, inshallah. I'm gonna stop now, and if you guys have any questions or comments, inshallah, we can proceed. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, we can hear you. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, thank you so much for. I want to about some verses.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. I can't hear a thing.
Oh, she's having connectivity issues.
Okay.
She'll probably come back, inshallah.
I just want to welcome his.
Oh.
Is it just me or
No, she. I think her connection went bad. Her connection went bad. It's okay.
sorry I'm late. I just want to
you
emphasize
just joined?
on verse 93.
Okay. Oh yeah.
What an amazing verse. And it really puts it in perspective. As a
Yeah.
messenger, you are literally speaking for God. I mean, God is using you to reveal a message. So people who lie about it are truly the most evil. Yeah, I just want to emphasize it. A triple reminder.
Yeah. Yeah. I literally got messages from him like saying God has a message for you. And God is saying this, they're speaking on behalf of God.
Yes, somebody recently has been posting things of divine inspiration or whatever, and very cryptic way.
All inspiration is divine, almost. But that doesn't make you a messenger.
Mhm.
Yeah. Something strange.
Yeah, what was he saying about us? I didn't get a chance to.
I listened to his. Are you guys hearing cries in the background? Okay, I will mute.
That's okay. It's not that bad. Poor Ahmed.
I'm gonna wait it out.
It's okay. We can't really hear it much. It's just like very thick
Yeah,
in the
it's okay,
background.
Masha Allah.
Yeah.
I think we should post this verse in response of his claims.
Mm-hmm.
This is just perfect with
Yeah.
the subtitle.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my God, how crazy is that? And he's claiming that he resolved our dispute.
Yeah.
I did not read his document or anything or
Right.
whatever radio he has, but
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. I mean, now he's saying a lot. Like he's now officially like saying he's a messenger.
There is video feed now as well.
Oh, video. Would you like to see that?
Yeah, basically, I listened to his radio show or whatever, the first episode that he posted, out of
Video
curiosity.
show.
And he mentioned a lot of names, and but what struck me the most was how he contradicts himself.
Mm.
I mean, it becomes obvious that he admits he doesn't know what is going on, yet he assumes authority to fix it all. Like he is the savior,
Mm-hmm.
even though he admits he doesn't have a clue about what's going on. So yeah, I just found that to be funny, like a funny contradiction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another thing I noticed was like, he was making claims that Rashad's brother was saved. I mean, was saved and everything, and he was with God, and God is angry with people who are not, who think that he might have gone to hell, and he's in heaven right now, and this and that. And then I sent him the list of all the occurrences where he said that Rashad made a mistake and his counts were wrong, and then he never talked about the counts after that. To me anyways. But yeah, that's really from Satan. I mean, a messenger of Satan is, someone who claims to be a messenger of God, and he's really not. But then these verses should really scare these people. But the thing is that anyone who fabricates lies about God, whether they say they're a messenger or not, um, anyone, it's equally bad, because the reason why it's bad is you're fabricating lies and attributing them to God, and that's what is, obviously condemned. So the reason why these people will fabricate lies and attribute them to God is because they don't truly believe that they will be held accountable for their lies. They don't truly believe in the hereafter, and that's why they feel so comfortable, just attributing stuff to God that's not true.
I changed my shirt. Anyways, it is. They forget that Satan exists.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is linked to? Messengership is a response. So
Mm-hmm.
it does have its rank. Basically, you're at the top of the food chain. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
so connect to the ego, and who loves to stimulate the ego? It is Satan. So of course, Satan will use messengership as a tool to get to people. I mean, it should be his number one tool. And person, feeds. He wants Satan wants to feed the ego. Um, like when you blow air into a balloon, it becomes bigger. So Satan wants to inflate the ego. And I think this messengership thing is one such tool that Satan uses. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And all this could tie back to this claim here in the verse. Who is more evil?
Right.
So their ego must be really high, really big. It makes sense.
Yeah.
I just look at Paul, the supposed apostle, and how his lies attracted so many people. And it seems like humans are more attracted to the lies than they are the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how, somebody can come along like that and attract so many people and create such a large following. And you can see how evil it could be.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's using all these divisions, to get his constituents, and unity and community. Edward.
Salãmun Alaykum. Somebody's asking, how to join the conversation. Um,
How to join the conversation?
like, yeah, maybe if they want to join the pen, or can you please answer, Solomon?
Okay.
They're
Oh,
on YouTube stream.
okay.
Thank you.
Anybody has any comments? People are very quiet today.
Salãmun Alaykum. I have a comment about you're talking about the trees and the plants and all the wonderful creations that God created. Anyway, I heard a research a while back about how trees drop their pine cones, and they've studied how somehow a tree knows which pine cone is its own because it will redistribute the root system so that the nutrients can go to its pine cone and not so it doesn't interfere with its own offspring. SubhanAllah.
Wow.
Subhanallah.
How do the nutrients go to the pine cone if it's already dropped?
Yeah, I was wondering too.
So the seed germinates, and somehow there's
Oh,
an awareness of the
Wow.
tree that seed is from its own. You know.
oh, I see.
Oh, so the roots don't interfere with each other.
Right.
Exactly.
Mm.
But it doesn't do that with competing trees.
Ah,
Yes.
violent trees.
Yes. Even family members.
Masha Allah.
Subhanallah. That's amazing.
Yeah, I also have a comment on the where is that verse? The dead from the living and living from the dead.
What verse is that?
Yeah, where did it go?
It is verse 95.
Oh, yeah, mashallah. Also, yeah, praise God, you gave a good example of the egg and the chicken or the bird. But also,
Chicken.
chicken came first or the egg? the, the ultimate
That's why I
question.
said bird.
I know, you said the bird. um, no, I was gonna say also, like if someone dies or some living creature dies, you leave the dead for a while, and then you're gonna see more creatures coming out of it as well. So, like, you know, in shape of worms or whatever. That too, like from the dead, something else comes out also, literally. I mean, nothing like the cycle of life is so interesting.
Yeah.
Even from something has died and you leave it outside after a few days, creatures will be coming out of
Mm-hmm.
that material, you know?
Yeah.
And
SubhanAllah. You look at the design of all the different leaves of the trees. I mean, they're all so symmetric and so beautiful and so pleasant for your eyes to look at, and how they, give out oxygen constantly throughout the day, that we use for our consumption.
And the verse 88, talking about God's guidance. Um, um, to the person, ultimate truth, we are, Assalamu alaikum, brother. We are at we started Surah 6 from verse 74. So, and until 101, Salman?
Yes, 101.
Until 101. Yeah, about God's guidance, this whole life is about the test that we have to pass, that we never set up any idol beside God, never give power to any person, anything, any creature, any object that it can harm us or benefit us. Um, so the test of submission to God alone, meaning or upholding uh, the or realizing there is only one entity who holds every kind of power, and we worship Him alone. Um, so God can take away our guidance if, even after receiving guidance, we fall into any kind of idolatry. Um, then we will be given tests to prove um, our claims. That when we say we are submitters, the tests will come after that. I mean, proclaiming a submitter is the easy part. To prove it to God time after time, with different tests, we will be given that we worship God alone and we uphold His absolute authority under all circumstances. Um, and if we fall into idolatry, and those tests will be designed to to test our strength of our claims, and God, how God has said in Quran in another way too, that all our works will be nullified. Like, no matter how charitable you are and you are doing your prayers and everything, if you fall into idol worship, then everything is gone. All the works are like ashes. Like God has said, in a violent wind will just take it away. So we have to be very extra careful. During We need to know when we are in a test sometime, and we have to be solid in our convictions that there should not be any kind of and sometimes idol worshiping is not so clear, and Satan comes to us in different ways, because he knows now we're not going to be worshiping idols like Muhammad or Jesus, or submitters wouldn't do that. So it's more subtle, it's more you know um, hidden in that way.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum, Udrat.
How are you? How are you?
I'm doing good. Just
Masha Allah.
finished taking my dinner.
Yay! Now you can smoke.
Yes, maybe only me who can get smoke right now. Okay,
Okay.
regarding about God, maybe I have read about and Michael H. Hart, 100% the most influence in the world. He put Jesus on the third number, on the number third. So he said that Trinity is like kind of like he made a allegory that Trinity is like smoke. It takes light, tobacco, and paper. Without one of it, we cannot say that we are on smoking. Any comment about that? If I'm not mistaken, Jeff, yeah, Jeff is is the comfort person, right? Hello, Jeff. You hear me? Or anyone? Maybe can make an explanation regarding about that.
Can you please say that again? How are you?
Oh
Sorry,
yeah,
I didn't quite understand. Yeah.
I ever read
Mm-hmm.
the explanation about Trinity. Trinity, it's like kind of someone who gets smoking. It takes paper, lights, and tobacco. Without one of that, we cannot say that we are on smoking. That's why he said that God explained as a Trinity. Do you get what I mean? Anyone?
I just wanted to comment on well, the something we talked about earlier about the plants. I was talking about the leaves, and it just as I was talking about it, I just never noticed it, but just outside my balcony, like I looked at the tree, and all the leaves are heart shaped, so they all like go like this, out of the tree. They bend down like that, and so they're all like it's like little love hearts everywhere. But this is God's amazing design. I just wanted to share as I was talking about the leaves and stuff. I saw this.
Masha Allah.
Salāmun Alaykum. Hario, I'm sorry. I was having a hard time with getting my speaker on. Can you hear me? Hario?
I heard.
We
I
can hear.
hear you.
Okay. So from what I'm saying, you're saying it's like a cigarette is one thing. It has tobacco, it has paper, and whatever else, but it's still a
And a
cigarette. It's
light.
one. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an allegory for the Trinity and how that was explained. And
Yeah.
actually, it doesn't make sense at all because, first of all, if Jesus is God, then let's see, how's that go? Let's see. So if Jesus is God, is he God at the same time as he is his son? So that's the thing. Are they both the same, God and Jesus at the same time? Well, Jesus says he has no idea of the future. He doesn't know what God is going to do in the future. So if Jesus is God and Jesus at the same time, then Jesus would know the future. So that's a proof within it that it's erroneous. Also, the Holy Spirit, they don't even understand the nature of the Holy Spirit as well. But the fact is that God is one. Every scripture says God alone. And so it's just bending over backwards to have an understanding. Where did Trinity come from? Trinity came from because they're trying to make sense of erroneous concepts injected into gospels, and they have to make it all fit together. So they take all these verses that don't have that aren't actual, and they fit it in. And the best thing they could come up with is this concept called Trinity, that if you understand it, then you don't understand it. That's the way they explain it. If you say that you understand Trinity, then you don't understand it. And I also think that's
Oh, really?
yes,
If you understand it, so it's mean you don't understand it.
that's right. If you say you understand it, then you don't actually understand it.
Okay.
Yeah. Also in the
So,
Quran, God says in Surah 5, verse 73, pagans
mhm,
indeed are those who say that God is a third of the Trinity. There's no
mhm.
God except the one God. Unless they refrain from saying this, those who disbelieve among them will incur a painful retribution. And then also we have 4:171. It says Trinity of false doctrine. O people of the Scripture, do not transgress the limits of your religion, and do not say about God except the truth. The Messiah, Jesus, the Son of Mary, was a messenger of God, and his word that he had sent to Mary, and a revelation from him. Therefore you shall believe in God and his messengers. You shall not say Trinity. You shall refrain from this for your own good. God is only one God, be he glorified. He's much too glorious to have a son. To him belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. God suffices as a Lord and Master.
Yeah, I do
So,
understand about that, Solomon. So I just want to inform that someone the most popular book, hundreds influenced person in the world. He put Muhammad in the number one, and the second one is Isaac Newton, and then the third is Jesus. He tried to explain about the Jesus, about the Trinity concept and everything, and he
yeah, I mean, it's
explained.
wrong.
Yeah, I know. He explained about Trinity is like kind of someone who gets smoking. That's why we need Trinity. Or
Yeah,
he
I think,
explained the Trinity. That's why I just want to ask, what is your opinion
yeah,
about
I think,
the concept?
yeah, I think like they give several examples, and I, I mean, I don't, I don't like references of smoking so much. Yeah,
It doesn't
but
mean it not mean you like smoking or not smoking. It just like allegorical.
yeah, I know. Like they also have other allegories, like they say, like they give the example of water and ice and
Mhm.
gas. I think for so they
Okay.
say similar things, but yeah, I mean we all know it's nonsense, and they're just lies fabricated by people, and I mean there's no truth to it. I mean it's just complete utter nonsense is what it is. They're just using fancy words that God says that they will use to
Okay.
Yeah.
attract people. So
They're using
Okay.
fancy words and impressive like allegories to
To
justify it.
explain. Uh,
Yeah, to explain it. Like you can't have smoke without the tobacco, fire, and the
and
cigarette
paper.
and
Yeah.
paper.
Mhm.
And that is the theory behind the Trinity, that God can only exist because of the tobacco, paper, and fire. That's their God.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
just I
that's the
just want to
allegory.
hear. That's just allegory. That's why I just want to hear from someone, or maybe, yeah, all of you guys who understand about this allegorical, or
Yeah,
yeah, I
maybe
mean that's
has
making
any. Uh-huh.
that's making God a partner. It's the saying God needs other partners basically in order to be God, like the paper example, whatever, right? So God doesn't need anyone or anything. He is God by himself.
Yeah, that's why I just want to know how they explain about the Trinity, how we break about that theory. I mean,
It was a fancy attempt, so I can admit that. But it's still wrong.
It was a fancy attempt, probably came from a smoker.
Then you can make any example like that. Oh, you cannot have,
Yeah, that's the point. You can
then
yeah,
do
you
yeah,
can say
yeah.
you
anything.
cannot cook, you cannot make coffee without this and that and that.
Ha ha
Without
ha
the
ha ha. Ha.
machine, without the
Yeah.
beans. Like, oh,
Yes.
this is so ridiculous. What does
Yeah.
that
Okay.
have
Yeah.
to do
You
anything with
can't
God's
walk
omnipotence?
without legs. Therefore, God. Therefore, my God is
Yeah,
true and yours is
You
false.
can walk without leg and street,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
yeah. You cannot hunt without a gun and a bullet and
Yeah.
this and that. Like, what does that
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
just
Yeah.
trying to
Like
be
you cannot
fancy.
That's
you cannot go on
okay.
Facebook without internet.
Yeah, exactly. Or you need three items: internet,
Yes.
a smartphone, or a
Electricity
laptop, or
and,
electricity. There you
and
go. Or
electricity.
service. Do you have the service?
Okay.
Okay, you
Okay.
cannot.
Okay.
Oh my God.
But without all of that, you cannot do nothing without the DNS, right?
Yeah.
I think
Who's your server?
they
You need a
Who's your
pacified
server.
server? The
Oh
DNS.
my
they
God.
they pacified
Yeah,
each other.
you can find that theory on Michael H. Hart book of 100% the most influenced person in the world. I read about that when I was in high school. I forgot. First of first I read about that. It makes sense, but after that, oh yeah, maybe Ahmed writes. It's like a fancy word how to describe about the Trinity.
That's actually interesting. The Trinity has become an art form, like a poetic, like a philosophy or something poetic. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah. He tried to brought us like in the philosophic way. Yeah.
But that's actually interesting how they managed to create like something that is false and create it into like this fancy thing to believe in, that it is epic, like something greater than life. Um, uh, yeah, larger than life. It's crazy.
But I agree what Jeff said when you claim that you understand about Trinity, you know nothing about Trinity. And that's
Yeah, that's why they do
that's
this
great.
fancy
That's great.
stuff.
Yeah, great
But
statement.
the verse 91, it talks about Auzubillah minash shaitanir rajim. They never valued God as he should be valued. If they, thus they said, God does not reveal anything to any human beings. And this is just a example. But like if you really value God and you know who God is, you will not, nobody will be coming up with such uh, pathetic examples, I would say. Um, it's devaluing God so much and saying this, that God has begotten a son, is absolutely bringing God to a very, very small human level. Um, that imagine God is the creator of the heavens and the earth, seven universes, and no atom, you know, exists without his permission or do anything. And then that kind of God will just have a son. you know, who was in human shape here. Just see the imbalance and how they value God is like they have no idea who God is. The human being is so idolatrous. Obviously, we are here because of our idolatrous nature. they they want to have an image. They want to have an image to worship. They cannot imagine God, so they create these idols, you know. So they need something to worship, which they can see. And there is a verse where God says, you know, human being only um, something like human being says something
They,
which he
they,
can,
tend, they tend to only believe what they see.
what they see. So, excuse me, the criteria, yeah, my dry throat. Sorry, excuse me. And the criteria to believe is that you believe in the unseen. And unseen is the whole beauty of it, you know, of our faith. That this is where when human being will believe in the unseen, which is God, number one, the angels, the hereafter, um, and the jinns and all that, things we don't see, and we still believe in it, you know. That is what, when we inshallah successfully die as a believer or leave this world as believers, um, then we have a chance to go to high heaven. That's what human beings wanted when they took the responsibility of free will. They said, no, no, we will go down there and we're going to believe without seeing now. Just imagine, we could not hold to this conviction that God alone can be the only God when we actually were seeing God before our existence on earth, during the great before the great feud and in paradise. We could not. You know how hard it is now. So it is gonna be the most fortunate ones, you know, the very, very, very few believers. Like Rashad says, most believers are destined for hell. So these people say, who talk about Trinity like that, they say we are believers, right? We believe in God. But we know that according to Quran, most believers who pollute their religion with idol worship are destined for hell. So idol worship is belittling God to the level we is such a gross blasphemy that God said the mountains, like, shivered or something like that. My memory is not working very well today, on the blasphemy of that God has begotten a son. So it is so, you know, we already, even Muslims belittle God so much because they're always bringing Muhammad and glorifying him and everything, and that saying that the universe was created for Muhammad. Anyway, I'm done.
Anyway, someone asking about how to join this conversation or this study in YouTube. Maybe Solomon can answer it. Hello?
It's not a conversation, it's a study.
Yeah. Not study in silence, right? Someone, I don't know, his name is Ultimate Truth. Okay. He asking about how to join the conversation.
Yeah, God willing, I'll get in touch with him. Salãmun Alaykum, Edward. Are you there?
Maybe that guy is knocking on his door trying to sell him unity.
He's knocking at the wrong door.
Somebody just pointed out from one of our audiences here that from the verses 83 to 92, there have been 19 messengers have been mentioned. Just wanted to share.
Oh, Masha Allah.
Inshallah.
Okay, Salãmun Alaykum. I got a question that'll get the blood boiling. So, when the messenger explains with homosexuality about how people who tolerate it, that they could suffer the retribution as well. So my question is this: what does tolerating homosexuality look like? What is that? What is a society that tolerates? What would that be? How do you look? What kind of decisions do you make? How do you and I'm not even going to the to the point of laws, but even on personal level, what does not tolerating it mean?
So, sorry, I didn't get that. Can you repeat that? Not
Are you
tolerating.
kidding? Are you kidding me? No, I'm just joking.
Tolerate or
Sorry, I got distracted.
intolerate?
I
didn't
got
get that.
distracted. I got distracted.
No, that's okay. Okay, so I was just saying I was thinking of a topic this week, and it's kind of a complex topic, and so I wanted to bring it up since we were kind of silent, and and so it's about the verse in the Quran that talks about tolerating. Well, when the messenger explains, if you tolerate homosexuality, you could go to hell as well. You could suffer the retribution. And so my question is this:
Okay.
from
Tolerating.
from a person to person level all the way to a societal level, what does toleration mean? What does it look like? What would a society of not tolerating it look like, and what kinds of things? Where does it turn into persecution? Where does it turn into transgressing in individual liberties, such that everyone has a chance? There's no compulsion in faith. These types of things. How do you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, like I would say, just imagine, like, say, somebody is homosexual, and then they approach you and start telling you about their husband and all that, and then, and their lifestyle, and you sort of seem to approve it, uh, by not, uh, you know saying anything about it, or by saying something that is sort of approving it. So, um, basically, in the messenger of the covenant, like, gives example about, like, say, if someone like that, comes to you, you have a friend or someone like that, basically, that has this problem. I mean, you try to talk them out of it. If you don't, I mean, you're tolerating it. But that doesn't apply to you going door to door to people and start trying to convince them. But let's say, you have people around you in your community who are, so, if a community as a whole had that behavior where they started accepting, as we can see in our society right now, most people do accept it, and they say they're the equal to us or whatever, in that way. So we should respect, and that goes beyond just letting them live their life. I mean, they welcome them in a way, so when you do that, basically, that's tolerating, in my perspective.
So I have a question along the same line. So God used the word, is it called the abominable act? Is it
Yes.
okay? So then it's in the same category as altars of idols and intoxicants, gambling. You know, so messenger gave just one example, right? For example, he said, but what about, but today's society is tolerating all of this, right? Our governments open up casinos, legalize alcohol, legalizing marriages, homosexuality, abortion is legal, but not. So the society, the thing is, the society is what? Um, Meaning, I I get stuck on this question too, like on what level is the toleration and what level is the freedom of choice. Um, so that's a good answer, Solomon. That we, on a personal level, I guess we are at the stage where we can only act in a personal level, whatever, and we tell people that God God does not approve of that. This is wrong. Even at my workplace, it's the biggest politically incorrect statement if you condemn homosexuality.
Mm,
You might even not find a job, let alone, you know.
right.
So because now the gender issues and all that,
Mm,
before it used to be, are you male, female? Now there are three more things. Um, so how you identify? Some people say I'm not neither male or female, or this or that. I'm something else. um, the society is tolerating all of this, right?
mm,
And what level, we obviously we have no personal hatred. We can, I can only say, look, God does not approve it. Who am I to say then anything? When God disapproves it, I leave it at that. And yeah, it's a good idea to get people out of it and do not become part of it. Like, okay, that's cool, man. When are you getting married to your husband, or a woman to her wife or husband? I don't know. But the same thing goes for alcohol and gambling and all the other abominable acts, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, we usually we find our friends that are into stuff like that. I mean, we try to talk them out of it, right? You know, people from the past that may come and join us. Apparently, I just want everybody to know this. When we when we said that it's not a conversation, apparently the person has got offended, and I would encourage whoever is watching the live stream to look at it. When we
But
said it's not a conversation, it's a study, the person actually got offended, I think.
Oh, we're sorry. Yeah, you know, sometimes we make jokes and we're not aware of how somebody might take it. Please forgive us. It just does not. I hope you're still listening, and we don't
Yeah,
mean to.
yeah, yeah. Anyways, yeah, thanks.
it was just clarifying.
Yeah, I didn't think much of it, like in that sense. I wouldn't. I
Because
don't know
for
how
the
that.
first time viewers, it might seem like a discussion, like a debate or
Yeah,
whatever.
right, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we really get to truly appreciate like God's greatness when we think about, you know, all this design and God's greatness, and then, you know, how amazing and omniscient God is, and then and then they start to compare them with, you know, a human being who can't even, you know, control his own body. And you know, we're talking about someone who controls the entire universes, you know, and that's why the whole idea of idol worship is so absurd.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking about if you think even about a mother and a father to a son, so you think of that process, it literally, it's just a mechanism by which God brings souls into this earth. And even the bond between a father and a son, or a mother and a son, it's put there by God to create protection and a nurturing atmosphere for the child in most cases. And and it's literally just a mechanism for this worldly situation. Having a father and a son, it's not even in the context of God and anything.
Right, yeah.
I think we count as guilty when we are, are accepting it. For example, when you see a crime being committed, you're gonna object. Like if you see someone stealing, you're gonna tell, "Hey, don't steal." So when we see those kind of people, the sinners, we tell them this is wrong, and they can call it a lifestyle however they want, how much they ever want to, but it's not a lifestyle. That's like a thief saying, "Oh, I was born a thief. I'm sorry, you know, I can't help it. I was born a thief. You don't have the right to judge me."
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're trying to do. That sounds silly, but that's exactly how it is. So no, we shouldn't accept it at all. We should condemn it whenever we get the opportunity. But yeah, we don't go from door to door. That's not it.
Mm-hmm.
If we're both in a public place and I see someone doing something bad, then I'm gonna tell them. But what they do in the privacy, that's their problem.
Right. Also, like, I think if you think about it, like when we say like in public, like you could go to let's say you could go to a restaurant and there'd be, you know, a bunch of people there doing all kinds of things, right? But we don't I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you don't necessarily go to them and say, hey, by the way,
No,
you know, I
that's
don't approve. But you know, it's like but it's something different. Like, but it's different like when, let's say, you know someone and they come to you with, you know, their lifestyle, and then, you know, just like any other thing, you know, that somebody might come to you and they're doing wrong, and you have an opportunity to just accept it and approve of it or condone it, and or you can just uh you know, correct, you know, them, give them the right advice and say this is wrong, and you know, it's not right for you,
and
and
also
fight them.
if someone promotes it, like a politician or someone
Right.
fighting for it, then they have exposed themselves to such a debate. So
Right.
they just have to accept it. You give it to them,
Right.
just like they're trying to force the society to follow their
Mm-hmm.
sins. Then you
Yeah.
counteract it.
Yeah. Yep.
But
I think
and
Edward went to sleep. He turned on the pen and he went to sleep.
Oh, you just woke me up.
Oh.
Salãmun Alaykum.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No, I'm kidding.
Get your coffee first, Edward.
There's an interesting verse. Well, all verses are interesting, but concerning this topic.
Yeah, Edward, now we have a official messenger for unity.
Who is it?
It's like a nightmare.
The guy Zachariah.
Oh,
The nightmare has begun.
Yeah.
awesome. Maybe he can unite San Jose and Tucson.
We should invite him.
I wonder what his theme.
Dude, tonight's iftar.
What is his theme music when he strikes? Like Batman or the Jaws?
Maybe he can unite the Shiites and the other one. What are they called? Sunnis.
Yeah, maybe start from there. It's a long task, man. It's a big task. Actually, no, the unity should start from first uniting Jews, Christians, and Muslims. Then each from each congregation sects, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then come to the last should be the submitters unity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's a long path.
John Lennon rises from the dead.
I heard an audio talk about how it's God who will unify them. I don't know if that's an understanding that makes a distinction, but to me it was like, aha, is that something? Because he stressed that God will unify them.
Isn't it God will remove all jealousy, not unify? In,
It's,
Well, God reconciles the hearts of the believers, right? Is that what you're saying?
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
reconcile the hearts of. But I have not heard
but
God
I
will
think their
unify.
version of unity is like a socialist, like this extreme utopian concepts where everyone is wearing a poncho, singing, holding hands, and whatever.
Mm.
I mean, it's so weird, so strange, so
Yeah.
unrealistic and childish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I just find it very cringy and I don't know.
Yeah, like I wonder how Satan, inflicts people in very, very different way to get away from the right path. By I think people need to focus on before they read Quran, they really say Auzubillahi minash shaitani rajim. Otherwise,
Mm.
some start reading verses like those are about them,
Mm.
and hey, it's talking about me and I have to give the message. What God's commandments say, or addressing to Muhammad or prophets,
Mm.
and those things, and these people suddenly, I'm sure this is part of mental health issue or something. They become
It
delusional
it
that it
plays
is
with their
about them.
ego.
Yeah, their ego that, wow, I am supposed to say this and do this, and
Everyone
then
wants to feel unique and special.
yeah, and above others, so
Yeah, he came in
yeah.
like into the group and assumed authority and said,
Assumed
you know,
authority,
you're all
exactly.
stupid. I'm gonna solve everything for you. Like
Yeah, and like,
that's
did
what he said.
anybody
Like
ask him? Yeah.
indirectly, that's what he said.
Hmm.
That's what he means when he does that. Because it was a long
Right.
debate. How long did it? How long was it going on? 20 years, 30 years? I don't know.
Few months.
Like a few months.
Mm.
Yeah, but then he pops up from out of nowhere from the clouds
Hmm.
and says, "Okay, guys, I don't know anything. We're gonna solve it. Whatever."
Mm.
Anyways, the interesting verse is 6:121. Do not eat from that upon which the name of God has not been mentioned, for it is an abomination. So, and these people, these special people, I'm going back to the previous topic by Jeff, by the way, about the homosexuality. So, what these people do, they act as what do you call them? Like victims of hate and violence and whatever. And we look around in the world how they have been treated, like, violently. But according to the Quran, there is no punishment for it. I mean, social punishment beyond uh, like social pressure or telling them that it is a bad thing. But there is really no physical punishment for it, like prison or whatever. Because if you're gonna punish it, then you also have to punish people who do not say God's name before they eat. So that puts it in perspective. Or it goes the other way around. if you don't mention the name of God upon that which you eat, then you are as abomination as if you, like those people who deserve God's wrath.
I was going to ask, what do you think? Don't you think, though, that the acts can be seen as adultery as well?
It is. Oh, yeah, so like the lashes. You mean the punishment for adultery, that it could be applied. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it being adultery, but because that it talks about the adulterer and the adulteress.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, there is no punishment for consuming alcohol, or even like according to Quran, there is a maximum freedom of expression and religion and everything. But if there is a submitters nation, then there are punishments for certain things, right? God has mentioned, but none for homosexuality or using intoxicants. What else? I mean, there is punishment for adultery and stealing.
Yeah, I think the punishments
And
are
mhm,
for crimes that affect other people.
right, and
So,
themselves. Yeah, but like there is a reason. There's a lot of exactly crimes that affect other people. That's right. Yeah.
to really enforce the freedom.
Yes. Yes. Now they are violating somebody else's freedom or safety or whatever.
Another thing I want to talk about in terms of that is how Lot lived amongst them. I mean, it was just his family was the only ones left. And in context of run for your life, here, I don't know if maybe they didn't have those types of understandings of protecting yourself, but here he is in a community and they're all this way, and he didn't run for his life. He was still there. So that to me adds some complexity if I take that instance into the notion of isolating yourself or removing yourself from disbelievers.
I think it was his home, so he was making a stand, maybe. I don't know. Because it took messengers, like 2 angels, I think, or more, to get him out of his house. I don't know. He was maybe battling it. I mean, we shouldn't let the sinners evict us from our homes. So maybe he was making a stand, or because it wasn't just homosexuality alone that was the problem. It was their behavior. Like they went into his house, and he had these guests, and these people came into his house and wanted to sleep with his guests who were outsiders. That's really weird. I mean, that's rape, basically. They wanted to rape his guests. That's insane. That's crazy.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking too. But that's interesting that he wouldn't be evicted from his home. That's pretty extreme circumstances you live in, and and deal with these people. I just wonder if that is that something for us to, is there something for us to take with that in terms of tolerance?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it went to an extreme level because he went
Yeah, I
inside
mean,
his
he was
home.
telling them that, you commit such an abomination. No one in the world has ever done it before. You have sex with the women while forsaking your wives. So he was condemning it, and so I mean that's all we can really do. We can just remind them that what they're doing is wrong. It's an abomination.
So he was fighting them basically.
Right.
It's it's funny you called it rape. That I think it's rape too, but in American law they don't call it rape, they call it sexual assault, and people can go to jail just for sexual assault, not rape, as long as they don't. This is very graphic, but the difference, you know what I'm talking about. It's a ridiculous law, I think.
Or harassment, sexual harassment. I think they were harassing those guests, yeah.
Yeah,
By,
that too is.
by making verbal comments, yeah.
Yeah, that too is a disgusting thing. Behavior.
Of course, yeah.
So, but it's interesting to see parallels between that society that deserved, I don't know, like fire from the sky, and then seeing it, those things happening in modern time, like right now, or at least on its way. Scary. But I think it's because people are silent. They are afraid of speaking up and fighting back. So evil gets this freedom to expand and whatever, develop.
I was just going to say that it was in 1973 that the diagnostic manual for mental disorders, that a group of psychiatrists just did a popularity vote and voted homosexuality out of the diagnostic manual as a disorder.
So it was a popularity vote, not a medical.
What?
Yeah, it's a sin. It's not a mental disorder, but it comes with a lot of disorders, like mental issues. I think the individual is suffering from mental issues, and then the byproduct are all these various behaviors, like drinking or whatever, homosexuality and stuff like that, like a symptom.
I think there's talk about it being a symptom of being controlled by the jinn. Like that's absolute control by the jinn.
Yeah, it is.
I think that relates to my interpretation of the calling the idol worship the mother of what? Idol worship being the mother of all sins is referred to in a lot of ways. It's kind of similar to what Ahmad said. It's probably the first sin that leaves you open to all the others. That God's takes away God's protection from you.
Or you might be the parent of a child and your actions as a parent open that up to your children.
Your actions as a parent influence your children to make the same decision, to take God's protection away from them, because you're the biggest influence and advocate in their life. Yeah. I think what Ahmad said about the Lot when they came, they were telling him not to talk or something. What was it you said, Ahmad? Is interesting. I was thinking like it's the same system in prisons. You know, like snitches get stitches. If you see something you didn't see anything, that's I didn't see
Yeah,
anything. I'm not doing anything.
yeah. I mean, if we see it, if we see a crime, we have to tell about it. Like we have to tell the person that this is wrong. Otherwise, we are tolerating crimes. You know, if it's appropriate.
I think when the circumcision came up, we were treated the same way that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah came to Lot and told them to be quiet, and they told us they did the same to us.
Yeah.
And they actually gave us. They're not going to be the ones to hurt us. They gave us the condemnation of God. That okay,
Whoa.
and when they came to Lot, they said, "We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that." But in our time, our people cursed us with God's wrath. They said, "God's, we're not submitters. We're unrighteous." So it's like we're the ones who are gonna end up going to hell if we don't be quiet.
Whoa.
That's basically what it came down to, and I didn't like it at all. I felt very insulted, and I'm still.
That's
I have not got an apology from any of them, and I feel very offended still to this day when I see them.
I hear you. Exactly. It's like I saw three kind of people during this feud. That there were those who said, okay, um, this is our right. We're following the religion of Abraham, and religion of Abraham included this. And then there were those who said, um, it's not a right, but it's a choice. It is Abraham did it. Uh, we we don't know whether like they were lost in between. And then there were those who said, it's not in Quran. Why even discuss it? Why even discuss it? But they will continue. I believe they didn't say, oh, I'm not gonna. Now I am aware of it. I will not circumcise my son, or would allow that, or let people believe that. They were like, oh, stop this conversation now. It's not in Quran. Why are you debating it? Hush, hush, hush. You know, it's like, excuse me, like this issue has come to surface for a reason. God is running everything. This issue was left to test us. People forgot that the magnitude of this test was to, after all the proofs been shown to us, after the proof has been shown to us about the Quran, everything has been mathematically coded, all the practices even, you know, um, and Messenger did not leave anything out. And you're making it like nothing is happening right now. You can't even discuss or take a stance on it. Just don't
Well,
discuss.
they
Hmm.
they came to this conclusion. I think Zechariah might be one of them. That the reason it's not in the Quran is it's a test of unity And the test is that the people who fail the test are the ones who don't drop the subject and just let it continue and stay unified and have peace and unity and ignore the fact that people are adding regulations to the religion. And the people who say something like, hey, this is a regulation that's not in Islam, we're failing this test, as if God gave us a test of adding regulations to the religion, and if you don't do it, you fail the test of unity. It's a very strange
Oh
interpretation that
my
they.
God. Wow. They do not see the Quran that throughout the history nations have been tested, people have been tested after a messenger would come, and
Well, I mean,
then
that,
how quickly they would revert to idolatry. You know, this was just like that. It's huge. People don't even see the magnitude of it. That's the problem. That's why they're so soft about this issue. Oh, this issue is not important. It's not in Quran. Why you discuss it? That's those who say, okay, I believe it's not in Quran, so it's not mandatory. But they still, if it is not mandatory, is it a sunnah now? What are you saying? You know what I mean?
well, I think I'm not against unity. I guess we're not supposed to be against that though. But
No,
were
I
they,
unity, it's not about unity. It's this test is the test of are you upholding the Quran alone or not? The nations have been, if they fail the test, you're already, even if you are in a community, you're not united. You're united in a room physically, you know, in a masjid, but are you really united in your faith? So what unity automatically goes out the door if the if Quran is not up, Quran alone is not upheld, because any other source will divide the unity.
I want unity with the angels. So I will follow the Quran. I will follow God.
Yeah, inshallah, mashallah.
Maybe they should be thinking in those terms.
Exactly. Even if you are alone, left alone in the
But
world.
they tend to only believe what they see.
well, they've taken themselves to the high that they put themselves on a pedestal now that they're the ones who know how to be unified with other religions. Now they understand it now. They're like superior. Like now we can call the all religions and we don't care what you guys do. We're unified.
I think they are the compromisers.
Mhm.
If you can
Yeah,
unite with
exactly.
every single
Yeah.
one, single person, then you're not compromiser.
Hmm.
That's right.
I think Joel Osteen already beat them. He was the first one.
Yeah, that's a good one, Ahmed. If you can unify every person, then that's the definition of compromising. So that's good. I was thinking of an analogy of the Quran alone. We're in a protected, say there's a nuclear disaster, and we're protected in this cabin that is made of lead. And the rule is that you don't go outside the cabin because it's contaminated out there. And so we're saying Quran alone and our everything's been purified, but people are saying, no, we want to go out and walk around. Well, they go out and walk around, and we're saying, no, don't go out and walk around. And they're saying, well, why are you fighting me? We're supposed to be unified. And the problem is, if they go out and walk around, they get contaminated. And when they come back in, they're contaminated and they can contaminate other people as well. So I see it as an analogy to, this idea of when you start allowing, when you start compromising to that degree, everything gets contaminated.
Yes.
That was actually a good allegory. And if they are listening and they don't understand it, they're lost. That was like spot on.
The other thing is that those who just neither here nor there, in between, just being peacemakers, they I find them more troublemakers than those who are fighting. I don't know, somehow, they just never wanna, like, are you proclaiming you would never want to be certain about anything from the Quran? Um, the doubt, Satan uses the doubt as the loophole, and that's where you can start, because the doubt makes people to not come forth and talk about it. They just leave it. Unity will be on jeopardy, you know. But basically, they're doubtful of their own claim. They're not sure whether it is or it isn't. They just don't want their boat rocked. Um, yeah, don't rock my boat, Bob Marley. You know, he was probably high the whole time, and these people are intoxicated with their comfort. You know, not to be status quo. Let's leave it. That was
Yeah.
the problem during the previous history. Why would God tell us so much history of the past?
Hmm.
Each and every
I think
example. Hmm.
I think that's the whole sort of Tucson mentality that has seemed to have contaminated a lot of these people's minds, who insist on this type of thing.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
totally Tucson though.
Really?
I think it's a lot of people. It's not just Tucson. It's the whole world is using this argument, even for LGBT rights, and it's not Tucson. It's a human thing. It's, the all these movements with this twisted liberal argument.
I have noticed a trend, like Satan inspires all of mankind, and then mankind comes together, like from every direction, in every aspect of society, and they do what Satan inspires them with, like a certain mentality. I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, but you can see like a trace, you can trace it to some form of third party inspiring those people, all of mankind, with a certain mentality. I don't know if you guys have noticed it. Like it's really it's like the wind. Can you see the wind? No, you can't see the wind, but you can notice it, like from which direction it is coming and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing things.
No,
No,
I
but
see it the same way. I agree.
there is something like hidden. But it is noticeable, but I can't put my thumb on it. That drives people. For example, suddenly mankind begins to think in certain terms, and it is widespread across the whole world. Like, how is that even possible? Makes no sense. Like someone is upgrading or manipulating mankind's thought process. I don't know. I just noticed it on certain occasions. Like Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you noticed it?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't know either. I have no idea.
I'm
We
kidding.
lost you for a
We
bit.
lost you.
Sorry.
Crazy.
If it
Sorry,
sounds
Ahmed.
interesting, I will try to repeat myself.
We're all fasting, so just keep that in mind.
The attention span.
Okay. For
No,
example,
mashallah.
okay, I'm gonna do an allegory instead. So let's say the whole world doesn't know about oranges. Okay, oranges don't exist. This is just an allegory or example. Okay, oranges don't exist. So people live their way. There are only apples. Then the next day, suddenly there are oranges. And the people, their behavior and their thought process and behavior is as if oranges always existed. They don't notice the difference. They don't notice that oranges never existed. They act as if oranges always existed. I mean, they are unaware. They don't know how that happened. I mean, it's not. They're not asking how did this happen. They don't even ask that because they're not aware of it. They behave and think. They don't notice that oranges never existed. I don't know. Maybe that example was bad also.
I'm like, actually,
No, but
now I'm thinking.
Yeah, that's even.
okay,
I understood it before.
I understand. Ahmed, I understand what you're talking about. It's like they're dipping from the same knowledge pool. You know, it's like if you look at the really great composers, you'll notice they were all kind of born at the same time in different places. And it, you know, Bach and Mozart and so I've always said that, yeah, it's like they dip from the same knowledge pool. I don't think that's an accident. I think it's intended to be that way.
Yeah, I noticed that there is something. And when Satan inspires mankind, they all join together and begin to exploit like the new mentality, the new argument, or the new whatever. Like, yeah, that's what I have noticed at least. I don't know. I just find it interesting.
Yeah, you know, I think that is interesting. I think what I think is that I'll start with the phrase, "The road to hell is paved with good," and what we have is a political correctness and a society of doing good and making, and under the pretense of doing harm can be done. It's like the good intentions of people are being twisted to go to an extreme sense of toleration, to point of a sense of boundaries of what is right and what is wrong. And it literally is using the good intentions of people to facilitate this.
Yeah, that what you're talking about there, it's interesting that it's not what they say it is. They're presenting that as a tolerance and kind of like a peaceful resolution to stuff, but it's not, because the freedom of expression is being granted to one side and it's not being granted to the other who disagrees. So if all sides want to have peace and tolerance of one another, then they should be allowed to, you know, I should also be allowed to say, I don't agree with that. And they should tolerate me if they want me to tolerate them. But it's not that way. It's a gag order, you know, and they'll actually attack and have you lose your job and your home and everything. What happened? Am I dropped off?
No, you're here.
You're not dropped out yet.
Masha Allah. Congratulations, Edward.
No, that was a threat. He said, yeah.
What do you guys think about verse 82?
I was just reading that over and over again. It's awesome.
Masha Allah.
Isn't that what we want? Isn't that the reason where we put up this little argument recently about that subject?
Which argument?
That circumcision doesn't belong, is not a part of, is not in the Quran. I mean, because we didn't want to pollute our belief with idol worship. We didn't want to adding regulations that are not from God is tantamount to idol worship.
Yeah.
And we want that perfect security, and we want to be the truly guided ones. And
yeah, you know, this brings me to another really important verse in the Quran, where God says that in Surah 22, verse 31, it says, "You shall maintain your devotion absolutely to God alone. Anyone who sets up any idol beside God is like one who fell from the sky, then gets snatched up by vultures or blown away by the wind into a deep ravine." So you lose that security, you know, you get snatched up by vultures and blown away by the wind.
isn't that if we talk about the food argument, you know, like they say that no, it's only meat that's dedicated to idols, but vegetables and fruits are okay to eat. And then it's like, well, if you do that, aren't you polluting your belief with idol worship in a way? I mean, so shouldn't you not pollute it with anything connected to idol worship?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean,
Masha Allah.
to me that was the urgency in even talking about it, because you know it exposed the people's idolatrous beliefs when they're upholding other sources besides Quran, and people didn't seem to think it was a big deal at all. So you know, Satan, and that's like, you know, well, yes, it is important because everything you have ever done is going to be nullified. I mean, we're all here to worship God alone, and that's what we're united on. So if you know you're going to be united on idol worship, then that's not unity. That's compromise by definition. I mean, God says it's a religion other than submission. So if you want to be united with that, I mean, then good luck to you.
Can I say one more thing? Sorry, guys. But they say like, oh well, you know, like because I connected polluting your belief with idol worship, and they could say, well, I'm not actually eating any food from altars. I don't eat it myself. But if you say that it's God did not prohibit it, you're advocating it to other people. So now you have polluted your religion with idol worship because you advocate idol worship. You advocate other people to do it. And then you say, worst of all, you say it's from God, that God said it's okay. You know, it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah. I mean, we also read today, you know, about the false messengers in 63. Was it verse 63? And it's like the same thing, you know. Why is being a messenger, false messenger, wrong? Because you're uttering lies and attributing them to God. And the same thing goes when you say that, you know, God commanded Abraham to do this, when, you know, attributing a lie to God, basically.
63?
I believe it no, not 63, sorry. 83, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. No.
Not 83, sorry. 93?
93.
Yeah.
Yeah, you started at 74.
Yeah.
93. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it says, who are more evil than one who fabricates lies and attributes them to God, or says I have received divine inspiration. So the person doesn't have to proclaim that he's a messenger, even, but if he's attributing lies to God, he's equally as bad. It says, who's more evil than one who fabricates lies and attributes them to God, or says, I have received divine inspiration when no such inspiration was given to him, or says, I can write the same as God's revelation. So they're all bad equally.
False messengers. So a lot of us like to believe like we get some signs from God, and those would be like divine inspiration. If God gives us, like a mathematical sign that we should make this decision. So that cannot mean that all such behavior is condemned then. So this has to be related to
religion, like in a way that religious information,
teaching and saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is a huge difference. We're all guided according to the degree of our faith, right? And God communicates with us through either a messenger, divine inspiration, or behind the barrier, right? But that doesn't mean that every one of us can get up tomorrow and say, I received divine inspiration and now I can tell you what to do because, I'm the chosen one and this and that. And that is that is just, then it's coming from something else, which tells you that. So yeah, it is for our own, like how much we believe, and God will give us signs according to that for things we are imploring God for, or asking for guidance and help us in decisions or something. And then God provides us the guidance through inspiration. We'll be inspired to do something which we've been imploring, whether I should do it or not do it, things like that. Just an example. But then divine inspiration for these guys is that go out there and tell people that you are given authority to for like a God seal, that whatever I'm going to tell you is coming from God through me to you.
It is they don't know the difference between personal inspiration and messengership.
Right.
For example, while we are here sitting, reading, studying the Quran, or during the night, we are reading the verses, and sometimes we are inspired, like with an understanding, like, oh wow, and we like share it with each other, like immediately. That's not messengership, that's just inspiration. God is inspiring each one of us with understanding, and we are sharing it. That's it. It is what it is. I mean, it's happening. It is live inspiration. Live TV is live inspiration.
Masha Allah, yeah.
But they don't comprehend that. I don't know.
I think that it's just mental health issue, something.
Yeah. The ego.
The jinn gets very strong and start whispering, hey,
You're
the messenger. You're the
Listen to
messenger.
me.
Listen to me.
You are the chosen one.
What about the
whatever
messenger
voice
of
they have.
unity? The messenger of unity.
So you shock, knock on people's door.
Even though it was supposed to be Edward, but this guy took away. It's like,
Oh no, he took your job.
with apologies,
He took
Edward.
your job.
Just a joke. He claimed already.
He claims it.
He claimed it. Has he?
I
don't
must
know
be
if he
the
has.
I must be the anti. I don't know. Oh, I shouldn't say that.
Did he claim to be? It's just something we're calling him, I think. Unity. I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if he claims it.
I am one of those who exercise, run for your life a little too much.
I never run. I get exhausted. I prefer
I'm
sleeping.
probably gonna be running most of the
No,
time.
I drive.
Drive away for your life.
I will pretend I'm sleeping.
Masha Allah. Oh gosh. Like run for your life. People took different meanings out of this very simple verse, that they said, oh, become apathetic, run for your life. Just worry about yourself in that way, and don't worry about them. They cannot, so just tolerate everything, compromise, whatever. Just worry about your life, in that sense. Even though, the verse is very clear that you save your soul, because you will become as guilty as they are. If you support and be brethren to them and hugs and, like, oh, congregate with them and all that, we have to be harsh and stern with those people who become exposed like that. We just cannot compromise. That's where the unity drama comes, right? Well, then how are you united? Some of you are upholding laws other than God's. How am I supposed to be saying that everything is all right?
Yeah, some people might say, "Oh, you need to be peaceful," but yeah, for certain kind of people. But these people have received the message, the truth, you've seen the miracle, and yet they decided to compromise. And God doesn't love compromisers. It's a specific category, the compromisers.
Absolutely.
So of course we should be stern.
Masha Allah. And it's not that you are being unpeaceful. You can do all of this peacefully, and be stern, meaning your foothold should not be wavering, that on the grounds of the truth, that no, this is the truth, and I'm not going to waver, and I'm not going to accept what blasphemous ideas you're spreading. That's where the fighting comes, the verbal debate starts. We're not hurting each other. We're just stating the facts from the Quran, and we should just stick to it. Never waver. No, there is no compromise. No matter what happens, this is what we are here for. To get an unshakable conviction that we are upholding Quran alone and worshipping God alone will be tested. Our claims will be tested, and people don't realize that this was a test. They miserably failed.
Also on the subject of idol worship, I think it's a good uh, it's a good thing to always also keep in mind that we can also easily fall into idol worship ourselves. Like if God does not occupy our mind, majority of our day. The definition of God is like whatever occupies your mind most of the day. It's your God, whether it's your money, your business, your spouse, or anything. Could be your God. If that's what you think about majority of your day, whatever it is, I mean, that becomes your God. So I think it's a hard test for us, but it seems so relevant. But when you think about why we are here, I mean, it makes perfect sense for us. I mean, at least for us, people who are present here now, we know that these forms of idol worship are wrong, but Satan can still dupe us, and we can still get preoccupied by so many things around us. So we, should try to remember that God must be our God, and I think that's something we can probably try to examine on a daily basis. Like think about your day, how it went, how much you thought about God, how much you thought about other things. And I mean, on days like today when we're having study and stuff like that, Masha Allah, it's a blessing and it's easier, I would say. But on other days, when we have work and so many things, it's a busy day. It's easy to forget sometimes, and we do sometimes. So I think it's something that we have to like really work on, to make sure that God is our God.
Masha Allah.
What's the difference between being inspired and having your own opinion?
Well, being inspired is like when you get an outside inspiration, like when you say like, let's say God spoke to you, or God, in your dream, God told you something that you're proclaiming it to people, that's you telling, that's the difference. But you having an opinion is not even close in that sense.
I think you don't notice inspiration; it just happens. But opinion is like you're thinking about it. Right?
When I read Quran and I have thoughts and I'm contemplating it or I'm pondering it, those are just opinions?
No, you're asking questions and you're being inspired with answers, basically. I don't know, it's individual.
Yeah, mashallah.
Right?
God is the teacher of Quran. God says in Surah 55. And so we are sincere. God guides. God grants us our guidance and teaches us the Quran. No one else can. So that is through inspiration. Obviously, God is not. We're not seeing God. That He's teaching us. He's teaching us through our grants us wisdom to understand the Quran, and that's the divine inspiration.
But I keep hearing, basically Rashad has the correct understanding of Quran, and that's it. We're just supposed to learn it and kind of know it, and I don't. And for me, it's like, well, I don't understand. How are we how are we supposed to be, thinking? Or, I mean, God wants certainty. He doesn't want just followers where, they don't even think. So I get really confused because, if I say anything, then I'm being told, well, that's your opinion. And it's like, well, okay, I don't know how to discuss Quran, unless I just keep repeating what Rashad said in order for it not to be my opinion. And I don't understand how it works.
Okay, can I say something?
Sure. Yeah.
So the difference is, first of all, it's a mercy from God that God sends a messenger. Once messenger comes with a proof, God says follow the messenger, right? So at this point, we already have the Quran. What are we gonna follow from Rashad is the whatever understanding he's giving us is coming from God. So because they do not say anything on their own, anything which has to do with religion, not that what he liked to wear or eat, etc. The other thing is that when we discuss the Quran, everything has to be in the light of Quran. Our understanding should not deviate from the uh, principles of Quran, right? So isolated verse, we just have one meaning, while the other um, essence of the Quran is going against it. So that would be our opinion over and above God and His messengers. So that's the difference. If, but we could all say there is a verse. We all could talk about it in a Masha Allah. You feel differently. Salãmun would feel differently. I would feel differently, or we'll have many in-depth meanings of many branches of it, right? But it would be still the truth. It will be still attached to the Quran. It would not deviate from the Quran. If my understanding deviates from the principle of Quran, then that is wrong. Period. I am not gonna even go there.
Right. So in fact, I don't deviate from the Quran. I'm actually, talking about it. And one of the things is that I thought that, it's exactly what you said, that God teaches. And so, I have to bring it to life. I don't want them to be just words that I'm reading on a page. But it's really scary to say anything because, I'm constantly being told, well, that's your opinion. And it's like, but
can you give an example?
That's what I'm hearing that's what I'm understanding from Quran. So that's why I said I'm really confused about that. It's almost like I'm afraid to think because, oh, that's your opinion. And then that's your jinn. And I feel like I'm in a straitjacket.
Could you give an example maybe of a situation where, like, you like what like, it depends, like maybe, I mean, what you're saying could be your opinion, but maybe it could be from Quran, so I guess, but I'm really trying to understand.
Let me tell you something I've been doing, okay? Because I'm kind of new to this. I'm not new to Quran, but I'm new to the submitter, with Rashad and all of that. And I've been listening, I'm slower in that. I don't just want to go through them. I really, like, I'm obsessed with the one where he explains about the different universes. And then in the end, he talks about, and then they want to worship humans, because that was so profound for me in the way that he described it. But right now, what I'm doing is I'm reading it, but I'm also looking up the Arabic words and looking up the different meanings. And I've been told, well, those are not the right definitions, and and I'm looking up the ones where where it's from the classical Arabic, the original, the language that Muhammad was speaking, because I know that as time goes on, words change. And I was told that that's not okay. That why am I trying to change what Rashad wrote? And I'm not trying to change it. I want a deeper understanding. I want to understand, like, why did he choose that? Why? What was it saying before? What's it saying after? Before or after whatever word I'm looking up, and how does it fit in the context so that I understand better those? And I'm just like, oh, well then, I'm not, well, that's bad of me, and it's like, it's getting to the point where I'm afraid to say anything because I'm tired of being told I'm not a believer.
Right. I mean, I would think that, that is okay, but the thing is, like, if you have a translation, that's it's not a. So see, this is the thing is, the translation by Dr. Khalifa is not a literal translation.
Right. I understand that. I do.
So the words that, if you see the words that are chosen that are different, it's intentional. Like, it's meant.
Yeah.
The words are chosen to give you the most accurate meaning, based on today. So, also, like you said, that in the dictionary, you look at the classical Arabic that Muhammad spoke. Well, we will never know for certain because these dictionaries were not written during the time of Muhammad. They're written by people in our times, right? But we are blessed by God to have a messenger who was, divinely authorized by God to present an authorized English version, and he specifically, like, mentions, like, sometimes he said we have to go to the English. It's hard to understand sometimes, but he says sometimes you have to go to the English to understand what the Arabic meaning is. Him being the Arabic speaker himself is saying that, because he was authorized by God to present the English, authorized English version. So it like, if he chooses certain words, I definitely see that there's wisdom behind it. So if you read something in the English and it makes sense to you logically, then there's I don't really, for me personally, like, I don't really see any need to go and dig into the Arabic word and what it means, because it has already been translated for you from the Arabic, right? But unless you don't understand, or there's some sort of a dispute on what the English might mean. Let's say, like, there's a word in English, and then you'd be like, oh, well, this in English, this word can mean two different things, so maybe you can go to the Arabic to get a better understanding, and that's fine. But I think what could be wrong is, let's say you find something, and these types of people do exist for sure. That's probably why you're hearing this. But, like, say, somebody, there's people that will look at the Arabic and they'll look at the English, and then they disagree with the English for some reason, and then they go back to the Arabic to find the better meaning, and then they say, well, Rashad made a mistake, and this word should mean this, and then they go and write their own translation. And then a deep Yuxel, who was with the Messenger of the Covenant, did exactly that. And there's other people that will, from time to time, will say that the messenger made a mistake. It should be this, it should be that. So it's good practice for us. For me, I would say, like, just to go by with the English. And if you have any specific scenarios where you feel that you don't understand, then maybe it's good to look at the Arabic sometimes. But other than that, there's, even if you read the English.
Like the names of Allah, the names of God, like Rahman, Rahim. Well, we say, merciful, the most merciful, the most gracious, but there's more to it than that. You know, and that's what I like to understand. So I get a more in-depth understanding of exactly what that means. Well, what does most gracious mean? What does most merciful mean? You know, so when I look it up in the Arabic, it gives me it helps me to understand who God is better. You know, or the expansion of His mercy, or the expansion of His grace. I don't think there's anything
Yeah, I mean,
wrong
those
with
are fine. Those are fine. But let's say, if there was other differences where, there's people that have changed a lot of things. Like, this one person was used to come to our studies also here on the pen too, and he started saying that where verse 434 that talks about, X, Y, and Z, and the last alternative being beating. Obviously, we know that it's a psychological approach. He said that the messenger made a mistake because that word in Arabic means to walk away or something,
Separate
and
yourself from.
separate yourself. Yeah, something like that. And because that happened, because they went into the Arabic and tried, because they disagreed with it, went into the Arabic to try to look at different meanings, and found this one, because
I call
God
it.
says, yeah,
I
God
call it
says that there
root wordism.
yeah, exactly, because God says that there's straightforward verses and there are allegorical verses that could have multiple meaning, or multiple meaning verses, and then people who have disease in their hearts to try to extricate certain meaning. So that type of thing does exist, just so you're aware. So I mean, that's probably why they're telling you to be careful, perhaps.
The problem with that is, going back to the root word, is every Arabic word has a root word. So one root word can have 100 different meanings.
Right.
So what these people do is they go back to the root word and they extract the meaning they desire, like whatever fits their agenda. That's what they are doing.
Right. Yeah, my father spoke the language of the Quran. He used to he knew that language very well. I wish he was here so I could ask him questions now. But yeah, I just didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I mean, if
There isn't.
you're questioning, if you're trying to get a more in depth, it doesn't mean that you don't believe. It doesn't mean any of that. At least I don't feel that way.
I did something similar, and it only increased my trust in Rashad, because I saw that his knowledge must have been inspired. I mean,
right.
There is no doubt about it.
Right.
And I understood that, like physically, really, once I did the research. I checked the Arabic word, I compared this translation, I did my research.
Right. Well, see, that's what I said. I thought there should be certainty, in everything, especially with, and God He encourages that, to ponder in things,
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So yeah, God does say that we examine all the words, that no harm in examining, and if there is a doubt,
Oh, I think we lost Nugget.
Hello?
She dropped out.
Oh. My mother invaded my room.
I mean, we can hear you.
Break the fast.
Oh, it's time to break fast? Okay, congratulations.
Yeah, but I will wait a little, no problem.
No, go ahead, inshallah. Yeah, please.
Are you trying to get rid of me?
No. Well,
What happened? Did she get dropped off?
Yes, somehow she got disconnected. She said she's having connection issues.
No.
The reason why I did that research as well is because the Muslims, they kept saying that, oh, Rashad translated this wrong and this wrong and this and this. So I took it on myself to really check it out, because I wanted to argue from knowledge, not without knowledge. I wanted to understand the reasoning. So I did the research, and I saw that his translation is based on, sure, of course it is the meaning of the verses, but it's also context of the entire religion, all the verses, and the circumstances about the stories or the examples mentioned in the verses itself. So it was all connected. His entire translation is connected. I mean, it is like perfectly balanced. I mean, it is truly divinely inspired or authorized, divinely authorized by God. The only English translation authorized by God.
Masha Allah. I like to express it in terms of like knowledge, like concept. For another analogy, it'd be like when Newton came, he proved mathematically gravitational forces and acceleration and things like this, which phenomena. And I think the analogy of that is that the messenger brought an understanding with footnotes and the appendices and the whole thing, to go back and dissect it and try to do it yourself is like saying, well, I don't like what Newton did, and so I'm going to try to come up with my own understanding. Meanwhile, the people who took Newton's work, they start developing advanced calculus and going on further and developing their understanding deeper, simply because the concepts were so well unified. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. That by omitting the messenger's work, or by not valuing it in that light, you're not standing on the shoulders of giants in a sense. You're trying to do it yourself.
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think that's a really narrow way to view it. If somebody is, if I'm looking at things, it's not that I'm rejecting anything. It's like when Newton came up with whatever he came up with, people didn't just sit back and go, "Oh wow, that's really great." They tested it. They wanted to be certain that this is it. That didn't mean that they didn't believe it. They wanted to believe it. That didn't mean they didn't believe it. It just means that they needed to be certain for themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a deeper understanding, or wanting to be clearer, or wanting to.
They wanted to repeat the experiment to see if it's repeatable.
Well, absolutely. And we're supposed to. I don't understand this. Well, no, it's all written and that's it, and you don't even have to think anymore. Just read it and just take it and accept it. Well, I don't operate that way. I don't. And
I think that's blind faith.
Exactly. Thank you, Ahmed. That's exactly what I thought. I thought, wait, God doesn't need somebody who's just following somebody else and hasn't really thought about anything. You have to think about it. You have to accept, because when you're certain, and you stand firm. Period. You stand firm.
I think what would really help with the certainty part also is the mathematical miracle. You know,
Right.
Definitely.
trying to understand the message.
You know, Solomon, I don't have any issue with Rashad being the messenger. I don't have any issue with the number 19. I don't have any issue with his interpretation, his authorized interpretation. I don't have any issue with any of that. Just for me, when I'm here, when I'm alone, when I'm reading, I want to get closer to God. I want to understand better. I want to feel it. I don't want to just intellectualize it.
Right.
You understand? There's a big difference.
Like you want to understand what you believe in.
Right, exactly. I don't.
It's logical.
Exactly.
Right, but I mean, are there any differences you've come across, like with
No,
what the messenger
no.
is saying?
See, that isn't the point. That isn't the point. I don't expect to find any differences.
No,
When
but
I
I'm saying, were there like the examples you're giving when the person told you that you should just follow this? I'm saying, did it ever come to a point where you sort of found yourself in a conflict where the dictionary says something else and the
No.
messengers translate? Okay.
No, not at all. It was just for my own. It was just so that I get a better understanding, so I get a deeper understanding. Why did he choose that word? Oh, and then I read. You know, I'm reading the Quran and I'm reading. Ayahs before and ayahs after, and I marvel at the intelligence of it. And, oh, I see. I understand that. It helps me to understand it better and bring it to life for me. That's all.
And it makes it easier for you to also understand how he was thinking.
Well, basically just what God preferred.
Yeah, it will increase your faith. I mean, understanding of it as well.
Right. You know.
So when you argue with people, you will argue from knowledge.
Exactly. And you know, you always want to have that certainty where if it's kind of like what they say about your who you are in your soul. You know that you're very firmly grounded in a healthy manner when you can hear all the negative about you and it doesn't take you off your center, or you can hear all these wonderful positive things about you and it doesn't take you off your center, because you have a firm grasp of who you are. And so nobody can tell you who you are better than you. So I don't know. Like for me, it's like mostly for me, it's the attributes of God. I like to know all of the meanings of that one word. So it doesn't limit it, because I know when I feel limited, I know it's limited, because I know God's way more than that.
I think people might be confused as well that, if you don't believe it and you have to study it, then it means you don't accept it.
Exactly, and I really
that's
I
wrong.
really dislike that, because it's further from the truth. Right.
Yeah, they don't know your intentions. I mean, of course, it could be true for some people, but your intentions are, you already accept it, but you want to understand it.
Right. Well, some people, and I understand that some people, they go into it with the idea or the negativity of, I'm going to try and do everything I can to disprove this and to show you why it's not correct.
Yeah, that was actually my intention when I was an atheist or a disbeliever.
Right.
I'm gonna disbelieve the Quran. I'm gonna prove to all the Muslims that Islam is wrong. And then God struck me down with knowledge.
Right. But to me, those are fine minds that am I wrong? We shouldn't be afraid to question.
If you don't question, then you're a robot.
Well, that's what I think. That's definitely what I think. But
God doesn't want robots.
He doesn't need them. He wants you. I mean, that's where he says, like, that's to me part of what no compulsion in religion is.
Yeah, because how can you believe out of free will if you don't do the work?
Right.
Like question. You're not questioning. Well, you kind of are, but you're trying to understand. It's complicated.
You know, I was reading, did anybody else notice this? I told Edward this a couple of weeks ago. You know, I say it all the time, you know, my Lord increased my knowledge. And then I understood, oh wow, that's Surah 20, Ayah 114, increase my knowledge. That's the Quran. 114.
I mean, yeah, God even says in the Quran, read the Quran. Why does God tell us to read the Quran? To understand
Right.
the religion, to understand God.
Right.
Because it is easy for us to say, oh, I believe in God, I believe in the Quran, and then never actually know what it means to believe in God and never actually read the Quran.
Well, but what I'm saying is that saying that we're supposed to say, my Lord increase my knowledge, that is chapter 20, verse 114, and 114 is how many surahs there are in the Quran.
Yeah, exactly.
And so for me, it really focused it on increase my knowledge. Okay, well, 114, that's the Quran. Then read the Quran.
Yeah. So how do we increase our knowledge? In a vacuum? Nope. We study, we research, we argue, we question, we learn.
But I mean, that's okay, right? If I mean, that's okay. It doesn't mean you don't believe.
No, it doesn't. And if you had doubts or you lacked understanding, it will only increase your understanding and it will remove your doubts. If anything you do that will remove your doubts, do it. If there is something you can do that will remove your doubts, then do it.
I think
that's what I think.
But I think also about removing the doubts, the mathematical miracle is, I think if you take the time to examine that, I think that will really do that, like much more quickly than.
Well, I don't have.
No. It's.
I don't have doubts. I don't have doubts. That's not it. I really meant it when I said I just want to understand it deeper. That's all.
Okay.
That's all. I just want to understand the Quran. I want to understand God. I want to understand it all deeper. And I wanted to go from the intellectual into the heart. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I want to say something.
Sure.
I don't know Arabic, but I don't think that somebody, because they study Arabic, can understand it deeper than me just because they know Arabic. I think what I was given, the AEVQ, I can attain the deeper understanding through that.
It is minor, like poetic differences. For example, the Arabic might use a word that means deep within them, like qulubihim, which means like really like their heart, the heart of their hearts or whatever. How do you translate that into English? You can't, but Rashad used hearts, in their hearts. But the word itself means heart and soul and body. It means, something deep. But the translation makes perfect sense as well. But it's just a poetic difference.
Right.
But the meaning is right there.
So how did Rashad get a deeper understanding? Is it because he knew the dictionary well, or is it
because even in English you say the heart of hell. We know the hell doesn't have a beating heart, but the heart means something really deep. We can even extract that from the English, but we have to, put some effort.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting you brought that up because in the Arabic, it's actually doesn't. In the English, it doesn't say hearts. In the Arabic, it says hearts. In the English, it says in their minds, and that makes sense. Yeah, like if you look at verse 2, Surah 2, verse 10, where it says fi qulubihim, in the English, it says in their minds. So, he translated them not as literal. He translated them for what it really means.
Yeah.
So that's just
exactly
the easiest thing for us, I mean, there's nothing deeper to it here, anyways. I mean, they're diseased basically.
Yeah,
There's something
just
wrong
a poetic difference.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's.
But yeah, when it comes to attributes of God, I think, and you want to ponder upon them, I mean, we commemorate God with his attributes in Arabic, preferably, anyways, because they're all, mathematically composed and all of that. So, I mean, that's okay if you want to understand what those attributes really mean.
Right, because here's the thing. One of the things that we used to do is like we used to study the some of God's attributes, and it so opened it for me. It just completely changed my understanding of who God was and is. And that's what I'm and I like that. I want that better understanding. When I say when I say Rahman, I want to understand what all of that encompasses.
Yeah, but see, another thing is also to remember is that when it says, if you look at it, when it says the verse 41, 44, it says, if we made it a non-Arabic Quran, they would have said, why did it come down in that language? It says, whether it is Arabic or non-Arabic, for those who believe, it is a guide and healing. As for those who disbelieve, they will be deaf and blind to it, as if they're being addressed from far away. So, I mean, a lot of people even go down to the route of wanting to learn Arabic because they think that it will help them understand the Quran better and they'll be better guided. But language is really irrelevant when it comes to being guided.
I agree with you I completely 100% agree with you. I used to argue about that all the time because it never made sense to me that God says this is the final testament, and that it is for all people for all time. Well, logic tells me not everybody's going to know Arabic. And so to me, this was he made it to where it would be perfectly translatable in whatever language it was going to be in, and it would reach the people whose hearts are open to being guided. And I used to get all the time, no, if you don't understand it in Arabic, you're just missing the whole point. And it's like, well, I don't see how I'm missing the point when I understand what God's saying in order to live a correct life. So I completely agree with that. I always thought that was a very kind of a prejudiced argument, you just got to know the Arabic. And I don't agree with that at all. I never have.
Right. Okay. Who is the green avatar? Is that Jeff? Not Jeff. That's not Jeff, right?
No.
I think that must be Huda then.
You wish.
No, I think it's
so Daniel. So what's the point, Daniel?
What's the point of what?
The point of this conversation. I mean,
it's not a conversation; it's a Quran study. Yeah.
Well, the point for me, I had asked, because when I had mentioned it to someone else, I had it was being treated like it was a dangerous thing, and why are you doing this, and you don't really believe, and it's like I get tired of that. It's like, really, I just get tired of it, and so I wanted to ask the people here, okay, explain this to me. Isn't it okay to, question, ponder, study, research,
Yeah, I think intention is what matters, really.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree, but, unfortunately, sometimes people, it's the surface thing that matters most. So there's nothing I can do about that. But I'm glad I have my answers. And it's pretty much what I thought, but I just wanted to make it very clear,
Yeah. maybe it's almost the same with the condition in Indonesia, because some ulama said that uh, whenever you read the Quran without the teacher, so the teacher would be a Satan. It's true. It's true. It's a lot of ulama say that in here. That's
Well,
why
Quran
they
without the
like,
messenger misleads the wicked, anyways.
yeah. So I think it's almost similar with the issue of the Daniel. I mean,
Well,
it's
here's
it.
the thing. Here's the thing, Hario. I feel like sometimes I'm in a no-win situation because I'm fairly new to it, not to the Quran, but to, the submitter community and everything. And I'm in this position. If I have questions, I got nobody to ask because I'm afraid they're going to think, oh well, you just what's your problem with beliefs?
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm just gonna remind you that not everyone is at the same rank. A lot of people are new. Everyone is still learning. So
right, but there's
take
been
their advice with some salt or whatever the saying is in English. In Swedish, it's called nypa salt.
take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
I
take it with a grain of salt. Don't assume they are speaking from knowledge, or maybe they have doubts themselves and don't know. And the
right,
questions you raise triggers their doubts. They become scared. So
Okay.
Ahmed, I said
don't
that.
lose your confidence. Don't lose your confidence.
Ahmed, that's incredible that you said that because I have said that. I said, is my questioning triggering doubt? Because when there's that kind of a reaction. But here's the thing, is there a place or is there people or to ask who have been at it a lot more many years? I mean, who that you can ask questions without feeling like you're being uh, judged or you're being called a non-believer. I mean, because I remember, when I was first studying Quran, 30 some years ago, we had Quranic studies, and those were the places that, we can ask the questions, and all questions were welcome, and it was all discussed. So you never felt, judged. But there's I don't know if we have that here. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't found it yet. I haven't found it yet. I mean, I would like to. I would like to be able to ask people, well, what about this? What is this? This is what I'm having a problem with.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Because
when you say,
because if I'm not mistaken, the first question is, what is the difference? It's a clue from the God or the ego from the mind, if I'm not mistaken, right? The first
Sure.
question of the Daniel, right, Daniel?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is true inspiration from God, or it's just our cleverness, right?
Right.
Daniel, I would
how
think
how,
that
how to
you,
make the distinction about that? If I'm not mistaken, I get the point of the question is like that. Okay, Daniel.
Yeah.
Danny, I would think that if you have questions, I mean, you can always. I mean, these are what Quran studies are for, right? So you come, we join the Quran studies if we're unsure about something. I mean, we ask questions, and it's perfectly fine.
Well, I figured I was hoping that when the recordings ended, if that's a good place that I can start to ask some questions. Well, this is what I'm having a problem with. Can
Right.
somebody explain it to me?
I mean, you can ask questions as long as they're, I mean, not like personal information. I mean, you can ask questions even during the YouTube, like if they're if they're off-topic questions are okay once we're done with the verses that we're reading.
Right. Right. Well, I'm starting to write down questions and reading ahead so that when they're, it's in the Quranic study, that I can say, okay, these are the questions that I have,
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a lot of questions on, the how we're supposed to be, in the society that we live in, and being forced to not accept, but it's in our life, certain things. So I know that when we get to those topics, I'm going to be asking. I just want to make sure that it's okay, and I want to make sure that it's okay to ask the questions without being judged, like, well, wait, are you saying you don't believe? And I always have to feel like I got to preface that with, look, I believe he's the messenger. I understand, I believe.
Right. I mean, it's okay if you're in the process of understanding the message. I mean, that's okay. I mean, but I mean, if anybody thinks that you're not there yet, I mean, that's okay too. Like, I mean, we don't care about what people think anyways, right? So we care about God, and I think it's important that we will have doubts too. I mean, and that's okay too, in the sense that we all have doubts, especially when we're new to submission. We will have doubts, and we'll have them for a while, and we address them. We don't keep them. We address them. We talk about them, and they have to be addressed, because if they don't, then the doubts will take over eventually. So it's okay to have doubts. It's okay to know you have doubts, but you're as long as you're trying to address them, you're trying to get over them, that's fine. And when you have these questions,
just trying to understand.
Yeah. So when we have these questions, I mean, we can talk about them.
Yeah, I want to hear what Hario was getting at, though.
What Hario was getting at?
Yeah, he was saying something, and he was going along a certain line of questioning. I wanted that to continue. I wanted to hear what he had to say towards your.
Go ahead, Hario.
Oh, what about Edward? Oh, like this, Daniel. I get the question.
We
The
should
first
calling her
year of
Daniel.
Yeah, it's Dania.
Oh, Dania, sorry. Sorry, because I know that Jeffrey, it's called Jesse, so it's almost familiar.
Daniel is a guy's name.
If you can't remember Hario, if you can't remember Dan, Hario, if you can't remember Dan,
Okay.
Hario,
Yes.
if you can't remember Dania, you can call me Danny.
Oh, Danny. Okay. Okay, Danny. Danny. If I'm not mistaken, I ever told about my story regarding my fasting a few years ago, that I'm going smoking when in fasting, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then after several days, maybe a week or 2 weeks after I start smoking on fasting, as I talked to Jeffrey and Edward, if I'm not mistaken, I stopped smoking, because I know it's produced juice when I smoke the cigarette. So that's what sorry if I claim that it's a clue from God, not my ego or my knowledge. So actually, it's quite hard to make a distinction. It's really from God who teach us, or it's just our knowledge playing in our mind. The only answer is only from your heart. That's why God always asks us to asking Him protection. We have to ask from His protection, right? So I think it's like we talk about, if I'm not mistaken, kulubihim, right? Kulubihim is right from the heart, from the mind. It's almost the same. It's your heart. It's as well as your mind. Your heart is playing with our knowledge. Yes. So maybe that's my 2 cents about yeah, God's teaching.
That's exactly what I want. I don't want it just to be in the mind. I want it to be in the heart.
It's almost the same. The mind and the heart it's almost the same.
Right.
Because the mind and the heart's playing our knowledge. That's where the Satan's working too. Satan's working in our mind. Satan's working our hearts, and as well as God. God is. That's why in pagan system they put a statue to worship. That's why Abraham tried to destroy, because what Abraham want to show us, want to let us know that God is not on the statue but in your heart.
Right. I agree.
I just want to add on the inspiration thing.
Yeah, the heart inspiration is almost the same. Yeah.
For example, you might be reading the Quran and thinking of the verses, then that's you thinking, your opinion. But then, like 2 years later, you might be outside buying some ice cream, and then it strikes you, like out of nowhere, out of the blue, like this wisdom that like teaches you that those verses, puts them into perspective, like completely random. That's what I mean with inspiration, that we don't control. We don't control the inspiration. God controls it, and it happens without our knowledge. Like we don't know it's happening. We only know after it has happened.
It takes root, though. You know, that inspiration thing. It roots itself within you.
Yeah, sometimes inspiration comes from our knowledge or our experience before.
Yeah.
Like I suddenly remember what my father teach me when I was kid. I don't know. Where's the inspiration come? Suddenly, I remember what my father told me about God. Suddenly, and I think that it's correct about what my father said about God. I think inspiration and knowledge or experiments almost the same. Actually, how to make a distinction only from our clear mind. That's my point. That's my 2 cents, Daniel.
I think it's not the same, but it's similar.
Yeah, it's not the same, but similar.
Yeah. Because inspiration from God is really, it is life-changing. I mean, it really changes. God gives you knowledge that you would not have been able to obtain by yourself.
Yeah, like I ever tell about story that I know about Alif Lam Mim before. I found the answer about 15 years after I'm asking in the high school. Because in our solar community in my high school, I'm asking about what the Alif Lam Mim mean. And they said that only God knows. And I said to them that give back this book to God and tell him to send it the new one that I can understand. That's my statement when I was in high school.
Yeah, you were honest.
And I just remember that I ever asked that when I read about the Alif Lamim from the Rashad. And I still can show you the Quran translation in Indonesia about translation on 80s or 90s like that. Alif Lamim on the translation said that only God knows. I can show you about that.
Wow. Yeah, that shows that if you believe in something blindly, then you will not obtain knowledge, understanding.
Yeah.
The Arabs or Muslims or whatever, they had like 1,400 years head start to understand the Quran.
So I mean, from all of this story, sometimes we cannot make any. Yeah, like Ahmed said, it's almost the same, but it's not the same. It's similar between knowledge and inspirations.
Yeah, but I think God is doing everything. So we could say it is minor inspirations. There are big ones, minor ones.
Agree that. Yeah, God doing everything. We don't know how, but He do everything. Yeah.
For example, there is a story about you know when Adam's sons he kills his brother. I don't know if it's Cain. Cain kills Abel.
Yeah.
Cain learns how to bury the dead from a bird, a raven. So God inspired Cain through a raven how to bury the dead.
Speaking of
so
that,
what do we say? Is that inspiration or just copycat from the bird?
No, God has it as inspiration. So there we have it.
That's why I said that sometimes it's almost the same. The inspiration and just remember, almost the same. A copycat or inspiration. It's just copycat. It's just copycat the method.
You know, how does God define Adam's wife? Because I know that there's no word Eve.
No mention of her.
No.
Just wife.
No, doesn't he call her the wife of Adam or Mrs. Adam or something?
No.
Mrs.
And
Adam.
your wife. Or Adam. And
we find the Eve only
wife.
on Bible. Yeah. We found the Eve name is on Bible, not in the Quran.
So what is it? Is it just is it Adam and your wife?
Yeah.
With your wife.
With your wife. So he defines her as wife. He just wife.
Yeah.
Because mate and spouse.
Because if have several names in Indonesia, we call it Hawa, not Eve.
Right, Hawa, but that's not her name, and that's like you said, that comes from the Bible.
Yeah, it's came from the. So I think the name of Eve never mentioned in it's someone created, if I'm not mistaken. If I say that, someone created the name because Adam from the Quran or Bible, it's all the same. Adam. But Eve have different name. Eve, Eva, Hawa, and someone, I don't know the others.
I'm gonna go break the fast and pray.
Okay,
inshallah. I just also want to say to everyone on YouTube, we can end the live stream. So our next study, God willing, is going to be tomorrow, Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, God willing. So if you guys want to join us, we'll see you then. And thank you. God bless you guys.
Inshallah.
All right. Congratulations, Ahmed. Enjoy your fast. Enjoy your food.
Okay.
I will.
In 30 minutes, I'll take my sihar.
I'm gonna keep the pen open. I will just be right back. 30, 40 minutes.